I am the only candidate in the race for governor, Republican or Democrat, to state that we should abolish both the state income tax and property tax and replace both of them with a simple sales tax. Both the income tax and property tax are Marxist to the core. They're not part of American principles and never should have been part of the American system. If we want to get back to what made America great and what made America prosperous, we ought to get rid of both. The income tax and the property tax in Georgia is as good a place as any to make it start. I am a states' rights Republican, and I do believe that I am the strongest constitutional Republican in this race for governor. I believe that we adamantly must have a very strong conservative for the next 8 years as governor of Georgia. We must have a strong conservative who's going to be willing to stand up to Washington and be willing to go nose to nose and toe to toe with whoever is in Washington and tell them that it is not their place to run our lives. Article 1 and Section 8 of the Constitution lays out very clearly the scope of the power and authority of the federal government. 90% of what the federal government has its hands in your life is unconstitutional. Every time the federal government stands up and says some new thing that they're going to do to your lives, whether it's Obamacare health plan or something else, the same simple answer ought to be coming out of your governor. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Every single time. We don't need new legislation. We don't need new constitutional amendments. What we need is a governor in Georgia who will say, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, show me where your authority is to do this. And if you don't have the authority, you better not send any federal agents down here to try to enforce it in our fair state. I want to share with you a little bit of story about how a strong governor who's willing to stand up for states' rights can make a difference. Just several years ago in our neighboring state of Alabama, we had a brave judge, Judge Roy Moore, who stood up for the Ten Commandments. He had a plaque of the Ten Commandments on the wall of his courtroom behind his desk. The federal courts said, you must get that out of your courtroom. He said, no, I will not. It's not only a Christian issue, it's a states' rights issue. At that time, the people of Alabama had elected a very strong states' rights governor named Bob James. Bob James told the Federals, you better not come down here and try to take that plaque of the Ten Commandments out of the courtroom, because if you do, I'll be standing there with Judge Moore, and my state troopers will meet you at the door with M16s and escort you back out of the building. Did you know that that plaque stayed on the wall in Judge Roy Moore's courtroom as long as Bob James was the governor? The people of Alabama liked someone standing up for their liberties, and they elected Judge Roy Moore to be the Chief Justice of Alabama. Several years later, while he was Chief Justice, though, there was another governor elected in Alabama who was not the same states' rights character that Bob James was. He was not the same man of principle with backbone like Bob James was. And as you know the story, when Chief Justice Roy Moore had that granite monument of the Ten Commandments put in the People's Judicial Building in Alabama, paid for with private funds, again the federal court said, you must get that monument of the Ten Commandments out of the People's Judicial Building in Alabama. Judge Roy Moore, who was Chief Justice, said, no, I will not. But the difference was this time, there wasn't a governor in Alabama who believed in states' rights. There wasn't a governor in Alabama who stood up for the people's liberties. And the feds came in and they took that monument of the Ten Commandments out of the People's Judicial Building in Alabama. The governor and the attorney general betrayed the people of Alabama and their liberties, and they're worse off for it today. I want you to know that that's the difference it makes when you decide whether you're going to elect a governor who's going to stand for the people's liberties or not. And if you elect Ray McBury, I can tell you, for all the problems that I have and all the inconsistencies in my life that I might have, one of the things you will not have to worry about is whether I'm going to stand up for your liberties every single day. If you're looking for a candidate for governor who's going to say that their greatest qualification is that they've been an elected bureaucrat for the last 4, 5, 15 years, and that they're willing to sit down and work with Washington, and that's their greatest asset, then I'm not your candidate. Because I don't believe that any solutions to our problems are going to come out of Washington. But if you're looking for a candidate who's going to get up and work tirelessly and zealously every single day, from the moment that I get up until the time that I lay my head back down on the pillow at night, and work tirelessly and zealously against Washington to fight for your liberties and to protect your liberties from all the encroachments coming out of Washington, Ray McBury is going to be your only candidate on the ballot. There's a reason that I'm the only candidate who's not already an elected official in this race for governor. There's a reason that the only candidate who's not already an elected official has the largest campaign organization of any candidate in the race for governor, Republican or Democrat. We now have more than 300 coordinators across the state and more than 1,000 volunteers on the ground in this campaign, more than any two of my opponents in the race combined. But the people of Georgia do have the ability to see for themselves and to understand for themselves when someone who's a true constitutionalist, a states' rights Republican, and someone who believes and shares those same traditional values that they believe stands up in front of them. That's the difference. I invite you, please consider getting on board with this campaign. The website is georgiafirst.org. I can't think of a more fitting domain name for a campaign in this governor's race. georgiafirst.org. There's a place you can sign up online as a volunteer. I hope you'll consider doing that. But I want you to just consider whoever you decide for governor in this race is going to be your governor in all likelihood for the next 8 years. We cannot afford to have anything less than whoever is going to be the strongest, staunchest, conservative, willing to stand up to Washington for the next 8 years. If you're looking for a conservative who's willing to wait for whatever the new issue is to come out in the news, lick his finger, stick it to the wind, and put out a press release or two, I'm not going to be your candidate. But if you're looking for the candidate who's going to be strong on principle, articulate on the issues, and who's going to be willing to stand up to Washington with steel in his backbone and say, get the heck out of our business and leave my people alone, Ray McBury is going to be the only candidate on the ballot for you. Thank you. God bless you.